Hey everybody, how's it going? Gutbomb, how are you?
I am great. How about you?
I am doing just fine. I wanted to thank you especially for being here tonight because this project, it feels like we would not be at the end if it wasn't for someone as driven and talented as you working with me to kind of realize this dream. So I wanted to make sure
Thank you.
to thank you right out of the gate. So let's take 2 minutes. Let's go ahead and welcome everyone that's in chat. Ryan from Everything Is Broken Garage is here. Steve from Mac 84. Quack. Francois is here. I cannot believe you were up, Francois, but thank you for staying up. Sloopy Malibu is here. Sloopy, good to see you as well. Frank Frodo Jedi is here. Toby Q, CDI, scrolling. Joe from Joe's Computer Museum. Joe, thank you very much for being here as well. And special thanks to Everything Is Broken Garage. Get something nice for Gutbomb and yourself, Ron. Thanks for all you guys do for the community. Ryan, that's very sweet. That's very kind. I always knew you were a good guy. And with the exchange rate, slightly less than $20, guy.
Please get me some Popeyes, Ron.
Okay, I will. I know you love that chicken from Popeyes, so we will definitely work that out. So, Gutbomb, what
sponsored.
Are we? Not sponsored by Popeyes. What are we here to talk about tonight? I thought we had a project or something, right? Do we want to?
Oh yeah.
Do we want to maybe? I was going to say, do we want to talk maybe about like introduce anybody that maybe doesn't know us and just quickly kind of go through and talk about like backgrounds and things like that?
Sure. You first, Ron.
Oh, are you sure? Okay. Well, anyway, hi, I'm Ron. Ron's Computer Videos. Right about the time. Hey, Kate. Good to see you. Right about the time the pandemic started, I got back into the retro computing hobby, especially kind of focusing on old Macintosh stuff. And what it made me kind of realize is that there was a lot of things I wanted to try to accomplish, but some of those old things weren't around anymore. That used to be very much everywhere because I've worked in education my entire life, and a lot of these things that I wanted were things that I just remember being really expensive from back in the day, or just being something that they surplus, they got rid of, and so I wanted to get re-involved with all that. So my background in computing is really, it started in school. I went to kind of a rural school. We had one Apple II Plus in the computer lab. I went in, played around with it at lunch a couple of days. They had the librarian taught me Logo, and I drew the school's like kind of crest in the in Logo, and I showed it off to the librarian. The librarian was very impressed. She showed the principal. The principal was like, everybody needs to see this. So I got to be the kid. They loaded the Apple II Plus on a cart and the big 25-inch TV, and went classroom, and I ran the program and I drew it, and everybody was kind of like, wow, that's really neat. And so the next week I went to go book computer time, and I couldn't anymore because everybody wanted to use the computer. So that was, I kind of screwed myself, but at the same time, a couple of years later, we got a brand new school. We got like we had like a huge computer lab and all kinds of stuff. So I did my small part to kind of evangelize how great computers were to a bunch of kids in the middle of nowhere, South Carolina. Gutbomb.
Hi, I'm Gutbomb. Next question. When I was a kid, I went to elementary school in a tiny town called Nederland, Colorado. Mm-hmm. And it's up in the mountains. I think the whole school was maybe 200 or 300 kids. So it was pretty small. Every class had an Apple II, at least an Apple II in the back. Some of them had two of them. Some of them had a 2GS as well. And some of them had a Mac Plus or SE. Mm-hmm. And then we had Mac Pluses and SEs in the computer lab. I fell in love with computers as soon as I saw the first Mac. I had a VIC-20 at home that I used for games, but it wasn't like a computer until I like started learning more modern machines. And then I went back home and I tried to like write modern programs on the VIC-20, which you can to a point, but then you run out of memory.
Yeah.
3.5K.
Yeah, that'll happen. What? Yeah.
My
Go ahead.
my all-time favorite thing to do on a computer at school was we had these Apple IIs that had a card in it that would connect up to Lego robots, and you program the Lego robots using Logo. And I've dedicated a good amount of time this year to cloning that card and making it available cheaply to the community eventually when I figure out how I could have been a bonehead and put the transistor on the wrong way.
That'll happen. That's all the fun of prototyping, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's so that's kind of like how you got started and kind of where you are now. But what's kind of your like background in terms of like the hardware side of this, or
Hardware side of what, Ron?
oh, I don't know, computers,
Uh,
or art, or what is it that you kind of do a lot of now?
I do all kinds of stuff, but lately I've been designing enclosures for things like little I made a little Game Boy type thing that or like a Raspberry Pi Zero for Bianca because she begged for a Game Boy for Christmas. So I 3D printed her one that I designed. I used open source plans for the circuitry for it, but like the case I put together myself. And then just doing a lot of 3D designs in Autodesk and Fusion 360. And I've been trying to pass that knowledge on to anyone who asks. I taught a couple classes a couple weeks ago about using Fusion 360. So anybody that has questions about that, by the way, hit me up. I will be glad to help.
Yeah, I was a few minutes late to the class, so I didn't get the first part, but I sat there and I just kind of watched the rest and just listened to the questions that people asked and all that, and kind of figured out that it was like already way over my head. But so my background is not like really like I've done a few hardware things. I've designed some stuff, kind of simple things, but it's stuff that you just can't get anymore. So it's just been kind of nice, like gaining some of the skills, and people have been very patient with me and taught me a lot of stuff. Again, I say all the time, I'd be nowhere in this hobby if it wasn't for other people taking an interest or just taking 5 minutes out of their day to like tell me I'm doing a terrible job. So I try to get better, and I try to take again, feedback is a gift. So you just have to kind of listen to people, especially if they care enough to tell you a little bit of something. At least if it's constructive, you gotta absorb that and try to get better and things like that. So, and that's how we met. Because I was working on a project and I was like, I saw some things that you had designed, and I was like, this is exactly what I need. What do you think about like, working together in this thing? And you were like, yeah, absolutely. And you just kind of threw yourself in and came up with a couple of different designs, and we worked on it. And so I was able to print some stuff last year before VCF Midwest, and I got compliments on it the whole time. And so and I made sure I was like, I am not a 3D modeler. I am not an artist. I wish that I had that skill set. Everything I make in like Tinkercad. So it's like, if you want the best looking Tron light cycle that you've ever seen, I can do that. I can use primitives, but complicated, like things that require maths, I'm not so great at.
I make the computer do the maths for me.
That's very handy. But so we kind of met through working on a couple of those other projects. And so when I got to a certain point on this one, I reached out and I was like, hey, like, do you think you'd be interested in this? And it's kind of, I was like, this is kind of going to be a project for the community. So there's not like a huge payday in it or anything like that. But,
What?
it's,
I'm out of here.
oh no. But there wasn't like a huge payday in it. But at the same time, it was an opportunity to help a lot of people and realize some dreams, and basically just kind of create some stuff that used to exist and just doesn't exist anymore. So can I tell people about the inspiration for the project that we're working on right now?
Go for it, man.
All right. A long, long time ago, there was this book And there was a couple of editions that came out. The first edition is I couldn't find a picture of it, so I wasn't able to put that up. But there was a book. It's called Build Your Own Macintosh and Save a Bundle. And the idea of the book is that if you were able to source some parts, you might be able to combine that with cheaper PC parts. And let me see if I can change here, and build your own Macintosh. Of course, you've still got to have a main board or whatever, but you might be able to use cheaper, third-party drives and things like that, and even floppy drives back in the day that would help you save a little bit of money. And so the concept back then, they were called them Cat Macs. And I still am like fuzzy on why they called them Cat Macs, but it was just, I guess, just some insider
catalog. I think it was you order parts out of a catalog.
Yeah. But it's as you can see right here, it looks just like a generic kind of maybe like a Windows PC, or not even like a DOS PC kind of at that time. But yeah, you could put a large display. They
certainly saved a lot of money on the machine so they could buy that monitor for like a year's salary.
Yeah, those page displays pretty darn expensive back in the day. But yeah, that was basically kind of the idea. And so what I did is I started making a few different little products that I wanted to. I thought I had these in a different order. There we go. Okay. So I started in the very beginning and I made the TTL adapter, which basically just lets you take the video off of your Mac Plus, your 512, your 128, your SE, your Classic motherboard, and feed it through a little chip that's flipping all the signals to make sure that everything is correct. And if you wanted to hook up a period correct display, like one of the ones you saw in that little booklet there, you could do that. And I searched around. I started looking for monitors, and I really couldn't find any monitors that were going to be compatible, because again, the Mac, the signal isn't just like a VGA signal or something. It's TTL video coming off the motherboard on those black and white Macs. So it is, and it's got a really weird refresh rate. So you need a solution or something that's going to sit in between. And so I started playing around with different scalers and things like that. And then kind of as towards the end of my journey on this, the RGB to HDMI came out. And it's basically like the killer app for this setup. The idea is you've got an IC that sits between the high voltage analog board on your Mac and your expensive, scaler box, back at the time when you might have to use an Extron box or something like that. But so I designed this. It's been through a couple of different revisions as time has gone on. And then I was like, well, what if we want to put this all together inside of a machine? And I designed a ATX power adapter that basically lets you split your stuff out. Whatever it is you're trying to do. Do you need -5 volts? You don't need -5 volts. Whatever it is, it'll accommodate you a bunch of different ways. And all of these things ended up being something that came together just in time for VCF Midwest last year. And so it is basically a Cat Mac on a board where you have a ATX power adapter, so you can use modern power supply. And then you've got an in-place or basically sort of like a adapter that will sit here, and it'll input the voltages you need, and it'll also tap out all of your VGA signals. Goes over here to the TTL adapter board. I've got a thing here just for testing, but then you can plug it into your RGB to HDMI and you output to a modern display.
I love that, Francois. He said, how I call it, a flat Mac.
A flat Mac, yes. Cat charcuterie board. But yeah, that was basically it. And it was just sort of like getting all those ideas together. And I sold a few kits at the show, and people seemed really, really excited about it. And talked to folks, and they were like, wouldn't it be great if we could find like a whole bunch of those old cases that you kind of saw in the book and all that. And that's when I was like, this has got to go to that next level. This has got to go to that next level. So I ended up taking these two boards based on community feedback and integrating it into one board that you can mount inside of an ATX case, inside whatever it is that you'd like, to kind of clean things up, get rid of some of the cable mess, and just make things a little bit simpler. So I have some actual prototypes that have come from China, and they work. And you're able, that's always nice. So they work, and you can hook them up in your machine, and away you go. There's a couple of different ways you can kind of implement it. Like there's a version that just plugs directly into the board, sort of like the old, the original, or those pass-through adapters and stuff that I make and all that. But this is the big time. We're at the big time now. All these little things, they're okay, but Gutbomb, you have something amazing to share, and I wish that you would.
All right. Well, we that board looks amazing, Ron. The piece of plywood, but I think I came up with something a little bit nicer.
Let me get you full screen here. That is very nice.
This is designed to look a bit like the way a desktop Mac SE would have looked at the time. So I took some design cues from Apple at the time, and it's kind of like an SE crossed with a 2SI, but it's like smaller.
I love it.
And you can't really tell the size of this thing just looking at it from here, but this will accommodate an SE board, an SE30 board with a different backplate. It can accommodate a Classic and a Classic 2. So I'm going to pop this open. Let's take the top off and look underneath. We've got this should probably give you a good size reference of how big this thing is, since this is a SE motherboard in here. SE is kind of I don't know, I think it's one of my favorite compact Macs because they are they can still play the old games and they're extremely reliable. And you can go back to like System 3, I think, on a SE.
You can go pretty far back. It's got it runs the right version of the operating system that has the right sound driver for like the maximum backward compatibility with all those games. That's such an important point.
Yep. And an SE30 will fit in here too. So let me hide some stuff. We got a blue SCSI on here, and this mounting bracket here is made specifically for blue SCSI, but this can be swapped out so you could mount a real hard drive in here if you wanted to. But we recommend a blue SCSI.
Yeah.
And this slug here is just representing a real floppy drive. I put it's just a block in here to make sure that it didn't occlude anything. But this is just a regular old floppy drive, and it plugs into the internal floppy port. I'm going to go ahead and hide those two. So this is like the mounting solution for those. These drive trays, they're modular, so we can come up with anything else that you want to put on there. And underneath, now you can see the goodies in there. We've got the combo board over here, and that's Ron's board that he was just showing off. And the big gray thing sticking out of it is a Pico PSU. And Ron's going to show off one of those.
Yeah. But basically, I'll try to get on camera. But yeah, that's what that is in there. Yep.
Yep. And then we've got a RGB to HDMI utilizing a Raspberry Pi Zero and just the regular readily available cheap version of the RGB to HDMI. Got the factory speaker that comes from an SE or a Classic or a Plus. All of those speakers are the same speaker. So you can just screw them in here. And then the board itself right here. And I've tried to make all of this stuff easy to print too, so it has minimal use of supports, and it should be fairly easily printable. We've got, let's hide the internal components and stuff. This is also a bit too big for like a regular 3D printer, like an Ender 3 or whatever. So this is built in quadrants that snap together. You can either glue or screw these together. And what else would you like to know, Ron?
I don't know. I just I wanted to just kind of say that I love that it's modular, because it certainly opens up more people to be able to print it. Versus having like a huge device or a huge box or something that might require expensive third-party printing options. I like it that you set it up to where most people can kind of do this on their commercial or on their home 3D printers.
Yeah.
I also like that that it's modular, so that way that the components inside, you're not locked into, I've got an RGB to HDMI and it is forever locked away inside this machine. If I'm a troubleshooter, like I'm somebody that keeps things around. I've got a little external blue SCSI on my desk at all times that's got system software and stuff on it. I like to be able to like pick that up. I don't want to like lock it away inside of a machine. I want to be able to like take that and go and troubleshoot and do things. So, an RGB to HDMI it's not an incredibly expensive thing to purchase, but I don't need 5 of them. I need like one or 2. So it's kind of nice that I can play around with my Mac and I can just pop the top or pop the top on this machine, pull that out and go somewhere else and work on it or work on something. Or if I was like, I don't have a bench power supply, I could pull the Pico ATX back out and go test something real fast. I like the fact that we use original floppy drives and we use like blue SCSI and it's all modular and everything's on trays, so that way that you can pull things apart and swap things in. I'm so impressed with the design. I just wanted to gush for a minute.
Well, thank you. I'm seeing some questions in chat about the size. I've printed one already. Should I pull that out and show it?
Yeah, show it off. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. I have only printed it in my prototyping colors. I use my crappiest filament to do the prototypes. So you get to print it in whatever color you want. I chose gold and brown and silver. So this is the size of the thing, and it's not snapped together right now. So I can go ahead and open it. And inside we've got the floppy drive, blue SCSI, V2 with Wi-Fi. For other versions of blue SCSI as well, like if the mounting holes are changed, we'll have a different mounting plate for those. This back plate on this version is meshed with the back or with the bottom pieces, but I've already got in the design, this is a separate piece. So if you've got a Classic or a Classic 2, you can swap out this and put in the plate for the Classic instead, since it has its ports in slightly different spots. And then we've got the SE board in here. Also, the programmer keys are right here, and they are very satisfying to press with this mechanism, and it's a pretty simple mechanism in the model too. So yeah, this is the size of it. So not huge. Yeah. It's slightly more narrow than a 2CI, and it's about half the height of a 2CI.
I love it. And I think that it answers a lot of questions, which it's really easy to make a big honking case And if you're going to do that, then it just feels like there are some Macs that maybe already kind of occupy that part of the market.
Yep.
It's nice to have something that's small, that is got the really good backward compatibility with the SE. Because I honestly, I think it's like one of the best black and white machines that Apple made.
Yep.
I mean, unless you're going to run like an LC2 in black and white mode for some unknown reason. Yeah, but no, it's I think it's very pretty. I think it's really cool, and uh, it didn't take but maybe just a dozen hours or so to kind of design that.
Oh, it was more than a dozen hours.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Sorry.
I think I probably did like 60 hours on this so far.
Hmm.
And it's not done yet because I've still got some ideas too.
Oh, yeah.
Like the SE and the SE30 have an expansion slot, which if we just make the top taller, we can accommodate those cards that connect to the board and go horizontal over the board. I don't think we'll ever be able to support the cards that go vertical because, well, I guess you can cut a hole in it if you want.
Yeah, I've seen people do that. I just to get their 4090 in their e-machine case, but I think that the sky's the limit, and there'll be additional designs in the future that kind of maybe address some of those things. It's really great though that we do have something, and I know that people like maybe the number one thing on an SE that people have a card that they put in is typically like networking, but I think that by putting a blue SCSI in there, you've got Wi-Fi networking at this point in the game. That the whole race for network cards in some of these old machines is not all that important.
And if you're interested in collecting those, the value of those cratered, so you can get them pretty cheap on eBay now.
Yeah. So thanks for nothing, Eric. all my retirement network cards got devalued. But yeah, I think that like the machine, there's a lot of good cards though, like the it's like the PC card for the SE that is like for the floppy compatibility.
The 5 1/4 inch floppy.
Yeah, but that's
that'll fit right on there.
Yeah, that'll work out pretty well.
Yeah, you'll need to get the taller top because it's got to scoot everything up to make room for the card, but it's not going to be insanely tall. It'll still be shorter than a 2GS.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
good. And the top of this thing is rigid enough that you can actually put a 20-inch LCD on top of it, and the footprint of the monitor will still fit on top of it, and it'll easily support like an LCD monitor. Don't put a CRT on top of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say don't put a CRT, but maybe a depending on the I guess the rigidity of the plastic, maybe a small LCD or something, not like a 2000s era Dell, but maybe maybe like your Hans G that you picked up at Shopco for $10 or something. That's probably light enough, but
well, you could print it in carbon fiber and put a CRT on it, and the carbon fiber filament will be nice and hard shards.
Yes.
Carbon fiber doesn't hold together. It makes it so it's hard and rigid, but as soon as it breaks into a million pieces. Because it doesn't actually run the fibers all the way through the carbon fiber like woven carbon fiber does. Anyway, that's nerd stuff.
Yeah. Gutbomb, who would you say this project is for?
It's for everyone. It's a community driven project. It's for anybody that is into these old Macs and doesn't have a case. It's for anybody that just wants to build something cool. Like it's kind of like Legos. It's for everybody.
Very cool. Why would they want one though? It's for everybody, but why would they want it? There's other solutions out there. Why would they want this one?
They want this one because it's there. It's something that you can download You can print yourself. The parts you do have to buy for it, like the combo board from Ron and the RGB to HDMI, those are all fairly cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can remix this thing and do anything you want with it because the STLs are what you're downloading, and you download those on printables, and just the sky's the limit for what you want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can modify it to put an ATX motherboard in it if you want, but I'll disown you.
So, so what are we calling this?
I've been calling it the SE Mini.
I like that too. I think that's a really good name. That does, you have to kind of think that, yeah, it's got some additional compatibility, but especially in my brain, that your target use, your real world use case is I want to build an SE that I'm going to play retro games on. I might be doing some MIDI stuff. I don't need a big CRT and everything taking up a bunch of space in my work area. I'm going to stick this under a desk somewhere and hook it up to my my KVM, and it's going to just be another tool in my arsenal, not something that's taking up a huge amount of space on top of my desk. So that's I think that's my real world use case. I want to have it for streaming. I want to stream from a real Mac, and I want to make it where I can just have that tucked away in my streaming rig.
Yep.
So
I want it for projects like when I have my finished final version. I mean, there's probably never going to be a final because I'm always going to want to tweak it, and everybody else is hopefully going to make mods for it too. But when I am satisfied with a first version enough for me to print it in the good color fab PLA, I kind of want to build from scratch an SE Reloaded board and basically build the whole computer as a project. I think that would be really fun and neat. And maybe build my own RGB to HDMI, because that's just an open source project. You can download the Gerbers and get boards from your favorite PCB manufacturer.
It's very cool. I dig that that everything has been just kind of opened up, and everything is so community driven, and everything is so much for helping out other enthusiasts. And so that's why I got into this hobby with making boards and making things. And I'm so happy to have met you and meet somebody else that's kind of got that similar mindset. That what can we do to kind of help people out? So when is it going to be available?
That's up to you, Ron. You're the gatekeeper here.
Oh, I don't know about that. I say let's try to get the 0.01 version out where people can maybe print and give some feedback and things like that here in the next couple of days. I do intend to have the adapter boards over in Joe's shop at jcm-1.com here shortly. The big problem is that K-Fest is coming up next week, and that puts both Joe and I out of town for a day or two, and so that will probably cause a little bit of a delay on that being available. But we're going to work to get these things out there just as quickly as humanly possible, and then go from there.
Yep. Sometime in the next couple days, then I will upload these STLs, and they'll be available. We would love feedback for anybody who downloads them, because I'm sure you're going to run into stuff I didn't. And it's an open source, it's an open community project, and the files that you download are easily remixable too. So if you come up with something that you would love to contribute back, please let me know too.
Okay, very cool. All right, if folks have a few questions, I did see some funny questions and stuff kind of go through earlier about will it support a portrait display, things like that. Not at this time. It's at some point in the future. But if people do have a few questions, I mean, Gutbomb's here to answer. I'm here to answer. So we will hear your questions.
Eric, I've already thought of that one.
Yeah, PowerBook SE.
It's swimming in here right now.
I do love the SE. It's really great.
I did see a couple people say that it was that 3D printers are a bit too expensive for them. The Ender 3, and don't stop listening because I said Ender 3, the Ender 3 V3 SE, it's a long name. It's not your dad's Ender 3. It's a very good, perfected printer that Creality made, and they decided to market it as an Ender 3, but it's actually a really good printer. It's not going to be as fast as a Bamboo, but you're going to get almost the same quality, and it's very reliable. I love mine. It's right here, and you can get them at Micro Center for $179. So they're very cheap for what you get.
Awesome. Joe was asking, what's sort of the estimated print time?
For me, each one of these quadrants takes about 3.5 hours to print on this guy. It'll be faster on a Bamboo, but I'm not entirely sure. So it'll take a while to print the whole thing. But yeah, it takes a bit.
Laptop form factor. We're working on it, Eric. Sorry. Stuff's sliding around. It's making me click the wrong thing. Joe says, how does the video get out of the box? The combo breakout, basically it will it extracts the video from there. There is a cable that will connect from that to your RGB to HDMI, and at that point it is just a HDMI connection that will exit your machine. If you have a compatible display, and there are some really old Dell LCDs that support the funky refresh rates that the Mac is outputting, you could connect that directly to an LCD. Or if you had a period correct display that's compatible, you could hook that up as well. You don't necessarily have to use an RGB to HDMI. You could use, there's a ton of different scalers on the market that support TTL video input that you could use. The RGB to HDMI just is open source, it's inexpensive, and it's pretty well traveled ground at this point. So
yep. The back plate that I have here has an HDMI port right here, and I'm using internal screw mount extension cables for that. So right here, the mini HDMI, there's a mini HDMI to HDMI extension, so you can just pop that extension in down here where my mouse pointer is, and run it to the back here where the HDMI port is.
Frodo Jedi asks, can the whole case be printed on the X1, or will it not fit the whole thing at once?
No, the X1 is still too small. You'll need something bigger. Okay. But there will be STL files for the full thing as one piece, the full bottom and the full top as one piece, and the 4 segments, in case you do have a printer that's big enough and you don't want to print the 4 segments.
Jamie's Hack Shack says, don't flog me. What mainboard would I be searching for to make this? Sorry, I'm Mac deficient. A Macintosh SE motherboard is probably the way to go right now, just because the power combo board and everything is kind of set up for that. We'll have versions for the Plus in the future, but that's a little bit further down the road. We got to get some of this other stuff out the door first. But yes, Macintosh SE, those are pretty inexpensive at this point in the game.
Yep. And right now, this will also accommodate an SE30, and very soon a Classic and a Classic 2, because those use the same power connector as the SE and SE30, don't they? Yep.
Are the Classic? No. The Classic,
they're kind of swapped.
They're wired differently, and it's also sound comes out through that connection, through that
that's right.
J12 connection as well. Is there a VGA port on the back? Oh, I mean HDMI port. Yeah, you'll have an HDMI port coming out the back with the RGB to HDMI, or
Yep.
just a 9-pin serial like TTL style connection. If you want
Yep.
to, you could, in theory, there'll be ports on the back. You don't even have to mount your RGB to HDMI internally if you don't want to. You could just leave it outside and plug into that 9-pin port, and away you go. Let's see, looking through here. How does the SE metal bracket mount inside?
It doesn't. This thing, it's soldered to the board on the bottom, so I just left it on, but it's not actually touching anything. Mm-hmm. It's just there.
Yeah, there are a couple little tabs. There's a couple registrations. Make it pop into the case, so you don't have to like clip it off the board or unsolder it. The whole plan is that you can put this all together and you can play with it. And then if you get bored in the future, you just take it right back apart. You put your motherboard back in your machine. You take your RGB to HDMI. You put it whatever. You take your floppy drive. It's not like a thing where it's like, oh no, you've got to mount like a special floppy emulator on it, or you've got to this is the only place you can use your blue SCSI. It's all set up to be modular. It's all set up to be. It's just a couple screws, and you can take the whole thing apart. And that's very much kind of like Apple's thinking on things. It's like, especially with like the Quadro 700 and the 2CI and the 2CX, these toolless sort of designs, or you might need just a screwdriver to kind of service things. So that was what we did too. And notice no fan.
No fan. It's going to be nice and quiet.
Yep.
And if you want to use a floppy EMU, like all of these Macs that we're talking about that this thing supports, this has a external floppy port, and then you get to use your floppy EMU with lots of machines.
Can you add an indent on the front case badge? That way people can badge them based on the board that they install. That might be something possible, but again, it's remixable, right?
Yep. And that's also something that I've been wondering about, like where we put the label on it, because it can be kind of hard to 3D print a label. But yeah, if you want, you could easily just go in here and cut out a 1/4 of a millimeter deep patch right here that you can put a sticker in or whatever.
Yeah, lots of options. Where does the leaking battery go? It goes right in the trash.
Correct.
What about the fishy caps? That's the thing that's nice about the SE. There's like literally like one cap on it that's a radial, or it's axial. Radial?
Yeah, it's an axial.
Or it's an axial cap. Yeah, because it's the axes. You're right. There's just like one axial cap that sometimes causes problems. But I've seen machines that are just like, they've never had it swapped and they still work just great. So I think my machine even had, or that's a different board. I had one that had like horrible like battery leak, and where the battery leaks on the SE, you can, generally speaking, kind of clean that area up. It's right next to that cap. It had that cap all bulged up and crazy. The machine still booted. The machine still ran for hours with no problems. It was nuts.
I want to expand on the no fan thing, because I saw some pushback on the no fan. This thing doesn't have a CRT in it. Doesn't have a power supply in it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have a hard drive in it unless you put one in there. But who's going to put a hard drive in here?
Right.
The 68,000 and the rest of the chips on the SE motherboard, and even the SE30, they don't get hot enough to necessitate a fan. The fans were because the CRT gets really hot and the power supply gets really hot, and it cooks everything. Mm-hmm. And those elements that cook the machine, they're just not in here.
Yeah.
And the Pico ATX that's in there, that's a couple of voltage regulators, but it doesn't get hot enough to make a difference.
Right. If you think about it, though, too, look at the fan placement on the SE and the Classic. It's right next to the flyback transformer. They're just they already know those things are cooking themselves inside that tiny box, so they just added the fan to try to like keep them from cooking themselves even faster. But that's really it. If there wasn't that in there, if it was just a hard drive, I bet Apple would have been like maybe wouldn't have even added a fan just to save costs. But yeah, it's flyback transformer bakes those machines, and so that's why it was in there. So it's no fan means no noise, but again, the model is remixable. There's nothing stopping somebody from adding a fan if they really want to. We're not going to come to your house and turn your printer off if you print it with a little easement for a fan shroud or whatever.
Speak for yourself, Ron.
Okay, well, Gutbomb may come to your house and turn your printer off, but I promise that I will not accompany. I will not be out in the car chain smoking while he does it. All right. Well, those are some good questions. Will we be able to buy the case if we don't have a 3D printer? I don't know that that's really a thing that we were wanting to get involved with. There are lots of services online where you can just submit models and have them print it. And that might be the way that it goes in the beginning. If it gets to be that the demand is really, really high, we might be able to work something out. But just early days, probably not.
Yeah. And if you're really interested in getting like the segmented version of the bottom and top, that's probably the best way to get that. You get it printed at a professional place because they've got the huge commercial printers that can print the whole thing in one piece.
Pretty cool.
Also, a lot of public libraries have 3D printers that they'll let you print stuff on.
Mm-hmm. They will. It's that's kind of a big thing that's happened, especially during the pandemic, like the Library of Things, where it's like go borrow a leaf blower, go borrow like a laptop or whatever. It's they're kind of changing with the times. So folks were saying, like, check your local Fab Lab or library, or there's lots of companies out there now that'll do your 3D printing for you. If people have suggestions and places that they've gone in the past and have like real firsthand experience with the quality on things, I mean, we can certainly add those to the doobly-doo on this video, so that way that people that are trying to get started can know where to maybe get the ball rolling. So, but yeah, I think is that basically it? Is that everything that we were going to kind of talk about?
I think that's it.
All right. So I'm excited. Because this has been like years in the making of trying to get this kind of all going. And I know you've worked so hard on this, Gutbomb. I really do appreciate it. It is, it's the realization of a dream for me. And it's so great that you were able to have the time, push your talents at this, and really kind of show off how excellent you are at the design on these things.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed every second of this. Even when Fusion 360 was crashing, it was fun.
All right. So thank you to everybody that showed up this evening to kind of share this announcement with us. If you have additional questions, I'm sure you can just get with us offline here, and we'll do our best to answer everything. So probably also check the description, the doobly-doo, here in the next day or so, and we'll have files out there that people can start printing and playing around with themselves, or playing around with all the stuff. And we'll have these in Joe's store shortly, so that way that people can go ahead and start powering their things up. The Pico ATX power supplies are pretty inexpensive. They do make different versions that do different things. I think this is like the 80-watt version. I don't think it really requires like an SE with like a solid state hard drive and a floppy drive. It really does not support, it really doesn't require like a super high end power supply or anything like that. So
I've got a Pico ATX and this Amiga 500 here, which is similar demands to an SE, and it's 14 watts on my outlet, so 80 is more than enough.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. So thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your evening and spending it with us. And I hope that we'll get some good feedback from people when they start printing them for themselves. If you, again, have any questions, please just get with us offline and we'll be happy to answer them for you. So, Gutbomb, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So, everybody, have a wonderful evening and a beautiful tomorrow.